reason that the insurance companies will allow you to borrow portions or borrow against the cash values or the equity inside the policy is because your death benefit is the ultimate collateral for your entire system. So the insurance companies are technically allowing us to borrow against our dead self in a sense.
Sure.
And when we're borrowing these, we're taking these policy loans from our system. The reason why we're taking policy loans is because we want to keep pressure on our money inside of our policy to continue to grow uninterrupted, like we never touched it. So when we put money into a policy, we lock in minimum guarantees on those dollars the rest of our life, and then we can still go out and do everything else we want to do. Because when you get money, there's 4 things you can do with it. You can spend it, you can save it, you can invest it, or you can give it away. Those are the only 4 things you can do with it. Well, by putting it into your policy, you're automatically solving for the need to save it because you're locking in minimum guarantees. And then you can decide whatever else you want to do with it. If you want to spend it, you want to give it away, or you want to invest it. So solving for that need of minimum guarantees is something that's really important. And that's one thing that wealthy people understand is the power of wealth creation comes from minimum guarantees and cash flow.
What does that mean? Minimum guarantees and cash flow. What does that mean?
So when you put money into a policy, you have a guaranteed contractual rate of growth on the policy, no matter what. And as long as you're taking policy loans against the cash value and you're not actually withdrawing the cash out of the policy, that means it's never coming out of there. It's just going to continue to grow for as long as it's active, as long as you have it running. Cash flow, when I say cash flow is the power of wealth creation, cash flow is what allows us to make moves and do other things. And it's really passive cash flow is the power of wealth creation, not just cash flow in and of itself, because cash flow by itself could still be spent on all kinds of stupid stuff. But passive cash flow is really the power of wealth creation, because when you've got money coming to you that you're not having to go out and earn and work hard for and everything like that, well, now you're no longer trading time for money. And wealthy people understand how to leverage time and money more than anybody else.
Yeah, there was a great example. I was listening to a discussion here recently talking about how Elon Musk had structured his planned buy of Twitter. And the details were that he was actually leveraging the Twitter or the Tesla stock that he owns, borrowing against that to fund this what is it, $40 billion purchase or whatever it was, rather than selling. Like if he had actually sold that stock, there's a tax burden there, right? He's gonna have to sell a lot more than 40 billion to get that money because of the tax implications. So rather than sell and lose that asset and pay tax, he borrowed against it to get the money to fund this purchase. So he keeps his asset, he doesn't pay tax, and now he's got a bunch of money to buy another, we presume cash flowing type asset. Is that a fairly accurate representation of kind of what you're trying to do with infinite banking?
Yeah, so leverage is this idea that we can still maintain ownership of our asset and create more opportunity with it simultaneously.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, the idea that we can borrow against our cash value, which means there's no tax implications there, but also infinite banking is about certainty and control. And the control aspect of this is the fact that when you take a policy loan, you get to set up the terms however you see fit. You get to decide when and how you pay it back. So the insurance company is not going to be knocking on your door if you miss a payment one month because you didn't repay your policy loan. That's why I said it's very much like a line of credit. So you can send money back to it. And when you send money back to it, now that just gives you access to those dollars again. Exactly.
And if you don't pay it back, I mean, it ends up just being, like you said, you're borrowing against your future dead self. And so if you don't end up paying it back, obviously we want to pay back that loan and play honest banker, as Nelson says.
Right.
But if you don't pay it back, it just comes out of the death benefit, correct?
Right.
Yeah, if you got a $500,000 death benefit and you had a $50,000 policy loan outstanding, if something happens to you, your beneficiary still gets $450,000.
So setting this up it's important to use it. This is not a saving technique is what I'm grasping or
yes.
Maybe trying to make clear for everyone is like, this is legitimately an opportunity to be a bank, but not to save it at 0.1%, rather to use an exchange back and forth to make some of these investments, it sounds like.
Absolutely. So money is like a muscle. You want to put it in motion to give it strength to grow. And if you think about it this way, I'm gonna use an example that might blow some people's minds. So most people don't know how banks make money. Banks make money very much like a retail business makes money. If you walk in a store, if you walk in a hardware store to buy a hammer for $10, well, that hardware store owner probably bought that hammer for $5 and they marked it up 100% and they sold it for 10. A bank's product is money. The only way that they can make money is if we bring them money. They flip our money for a profit. So the example that I use often is if I go down to the bank with $10,000 and I say, hey, how much interest will you pay me to hold on to this money? And let's say they give me 5% interest on it. I'm like, okay, that's not terrible. I'll take 5%.
Yeah. From the bank, I'll take that all day long. Yeah, I know what you mean. Sorry.
Example.
It's jokeable. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I'll take 5%. Well, inevitably, somebody's going to walk in that bank or call the same day, and they're going to say, I need a $10,000 loan. Well, the bank's like, well, we just took in $10,000. Let's loan it back out at 10%. Most people would look at that equation and saying, okay, they're paying him 5%, they're earning 10%, the bank made a 5% spread on their money. But they did not make 5%. Guess how much they made?
Tell us.
100%.
Because they're getting that 10 grand back plus the 5% interest that they got.
Because they're not putting any of their money at risk.
I was going to say, it's not their money. Yeah.
They're using someone else's money to create value. And when you use someone else's money to create value, the rate of return has a far greater impact than if you put your own money at risk. And that